Ciao a tutti, bentornati nella live. Welcome to this live stream. I don't know who's joining. We're gonna talk a bit in Italian. Um, you can, of course, ask me anything in the comments section. I've received some comments from Francisco, who was gonna ask me how and what is the best way to start learning a language, specifically Italian, right? So we're going to talk a bit about this. So I would like people to be commenting. So should I speak in Italian or should I speak in English? Because that's very that ain't easy for me. Especially for me, it's easy to switch from one to the other. But it's better, guys, if you tell me, okay, let's just speak in Italian. So io posso parlare in italiano, ovviamente, ma it's up to you. So whatever you prefer. So if you're a total beginner, maybe we should start soft with a bit of Italian and English. So let's mix it up. Well, what is the easiest way to learn Italian? I would start by saying, start easy, with stuff like Duolingo, memes, YouTube videos. Of course, like having a tutor like me can help you out, understanding what is this word, it's not easy to start completely alone. But every time I was asking, I was trying to pick up a new language because I'm currently studying Vietnamese. I started with Duolingo, and then I didn't go too far with that because, of course, Duolingo is not the best choice, but there are plenty of resources online. So I can give you, some examples of it. But I started learning Vietnamese, okay, because I went to Vietnam on holiday, and I was like, okay, I need just, to start talking with people, to start saying hello, ciao, come stai? Start interacting. Yes, no, I want it spicy, voglio piccante, or I don't want it spicy, non lo voglio piccante, in Vietnamese. I needed that when on holiday. So that's why I started learning my fifth language when I was there on holiday. And then what I did was like, um, buying a book because I'm a bit old school, but I really want it, Stai studiando italiano da molti. Ciao. Ah, okay. Very good. So should I switch to Italian? Dovrei parlare in italiano? What do you prefer? Because maybe, some people will like it more if I speak in Italian, other will prefer if I speak English. But I can mix it a bit, Quindi io parlo diverse lingue. Ho imparato la quinta lingua, cioè sto imparando piano piano la quinta lingua. E tutti mi dicono: "Cavolo, ma come fai?" Capito? Come fai a imparare 5 lingue? È un po' alla volta, se cominci un po' con prima poi più impari a, come dire, a crearti dei modelli mentali che ti permettano di switchare anche da una all'altra. Io quando insegno in italiano, se insegno l'italiano, ma spesso uso l'inglese, uso il tedesco, uso il francese, in base alla persona che ho davanti. In base alla persona che ho davanti, se ho davanti un tedesco, cerco di usare un po' il tedesco, anche se dicono tanti che non bisognerebbe usare la seconda lingua. Io penso che invece la seconda lingua sia molto utile, perché utilizzare la seconda lingua, non so cosa pensi tu, Deutschlandkurs, che sei qua, che ascolti in sottofondo, però io quando uso la seconda lingua mi sento più vicino allo studente, cioè per lo studente, for the student, is really important for the teacher to speak also a bit in their language. Otherwise, he's gonna be like, what is he talking about? What is he saying? I cannot understand whatever is she saying. So you need to, at least, for example, if I had an Indian student, I would be struggling with that because I need, the intermediate language, to mediate between one and the other. So for me, it's really hard not to mediate with another language. But the majority of my students are German, American, French, Spanish. So I have like some language in between that I can use to help them. You know what I mean? So sorry, I use a lot of hand gestures because I'm used to that. But essentially, what I wanted to say is that quando io insegno italiano, so when I teach Italian, I really need to switch. I switch a lot. Switcho molto tra italiano e inglese, italiano e tedesco, italiano e francese. And I think it's really important to do that. It's quite important for, you know, to put your students at ease. Per mettere lo studente a suo agio. Mettere a suo agio qualcuno means put someone at ease, okay? I like to do that, and I think I'm not a perfect teacher, but I think it's useful and it can be practical. So, going back to the main question, per tornare alla domanda prima, che mi era stata fatta da un altro che commentava, per esempio, he said, would it be useful to watch like Rai for the Italian based fandom, so people who basically learn Italian? Rai is radio, la radio televisione italiana. Rai is of course a good source of content where you can, you know, take some content, some interesting stuff from Rai. They put a lot of videos, they're subbed, so of course watching movies, ecco, this is something, questo è qualcosa di veramente utile, in my opinion. So I used to be a great Harry Potter fan, right? So Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all of these movies, I used to think, okay, I know these movies by heart. Conosco questi film a memoria. You know, to know by heart means conoscere a memoria. I know these movies by heart in my first language. So, of course, if I'm going to watch that, you know, in English or in German or in French, that's going to be very easy for me to understand whatever they're saying because I know the language beforehand, right? If I know the language, if I know the movie, if I know the plot, I can just, you know, go with the flow. Io posso guardare il film, I can watch the movie, I know already the plot, conosco già la storia, conosco già cosa succederà, conosco le battute a memoria, perché ovviamente se uno è un fan di Harry Potter sai che quando Voldemort lancia la cosa, capito? Ah, non si può vedere Rai in Germania, ci sono dei modi per... Comunque, dicevo, uno guarda un film che già conosce, è strautile, cioè io, utilissimo, I find it so useful, you know, because you can just, you know what it's gonna happen after a while, so you're pretty sure that whatever they're going to say, you're going to pick it up in your brain, in your, you know, do you know what I mean? So, se conosci già la storia, it's going to be very easy. And another very important point is work with the emotions. So all the emotional aspects of the language. So if you're going to talk about emotions, emotions are cross-linguistic. Le emozioni vanno al di là della lingua, no? Quindi se tu cominci a fare molto gesticolare, essere molto, come dire, utilizzare anche il volto, specialmente con i bambini, questo funziona tantissimo, cioè secondo me con i bambini più fai smorfie, perché le smorfie vanno al di là della lingua, no? Cioè non hai bisogno di conoscere una lingua per capire se una persona è arrabbiata, se ce l'ha su con me, avercela su con qualcuno vuol dire essere, come dire, arrabbiati, no? So if you use the emotional language, that's going to be very helpful for whoever is trying to understand what you say, right? So that's something important in my opinion. Se uso le emozioni e mostro e cose relatable, ecco le cose relatable, le cose alle quali tu sviluppi un qualche tipo di qualcosa che ti è vicino, cioè comincia a scrivere una cosa che banalmente tu già scrivevi in tedesco o in francese e devi guardare qualcosa che è relatable, perché quanto più anche l'insegnante deve fare esempi che siano relatable per lo studente, perché io ho lavorato in tanti contesti. Quando faccio un esempio e dico, ah sì, perché tu sei spagnolo e allora cominci a parlare, no, del suo contesto. Ok, se tu parli del contesto, della zona di comfort di uno studente, lo aiuti tantissimo. Non gli devi tirare fuori cose che già non conosce o che vanno fuori dalla sua, come dire, zona di competenza, di conoscenza, no? Se tu gli parli di cose che non conosce, fa già fatica. Devi parlare di cose, anche per dire, quando ero nella scuola, parlavo spesso di musica, di cose che i ragazzi conoscono. perché se parlo di cose che conosco, sarà automaticamente più facile sbloccarmi anche in una lingua. Se comincio a parlare di cose di cui non me ne frega niente o non conosco, sarà molto difficile. Quindi, per esempio, se uno avesse la passione per un tale musicista o un tale film o qualcosa che già mi interessa, comincio con quello che mi interessa, così ho un buon motivo per continuare a guardare quella cosa lì. Because if I watch like some, content that I'm passionate about, I will have a better reason to keep on watching, because I know that already. I'm already passionate about that. So that's something that hooks my interest. If I start watching, German videos about unappealing stuff, that's not going to hook me. That's going to be something that I find boring, so that's already boring. I need to be talking about things, and the task of the teacher is find interesting stuff, and that's really hard nowadays, because there are so many people who have different interests, and when you have a big class you need to mediate. And I believe, io penso che non sia facile trovare contenuti facili, ma io when I do like one-to-one classes, I really try to get to know my student. And whenever I know a student, like he has an interest for, bicycling or whatever, like martial arts, then I start to make up content about that things, that specific field, that can make him hooked on that, theme. So it gains more interest in the theme, and with interest comes competence, because if you get fluent talking in Italian just because you have to do that, that's not going to be funny. But you have to find something that it's interesting for you. If you find something interesting, then you can probably do that with in an easier way. For example, I started learning Vietnamese, but mostly because I like Vietnamese cuisine. So I was looking up recipes, so, and that's how you learn ingredients, for example, or how to follow a step-by-step recipe. That's a basic example. I was looking up recipes, and I was like, okay, oh, that's so interesting. This is how you say, like vegetables, or this is how you say milk, like milk. Sorry, I was switching to German. This is how you say milk, or this is how you say water, and that's how I learned one by one. These words, because I was looking up recipes. I was into, finding a way to cook a specific dish. So I was looking up the recipes in Vietnamese, and that's how I started learning all of those words that otherwise I wouldn't have learned, or that Duolingo would have not taught me in a way, in an easier way. And I find like recipes, or tutorials. If you watch tutorials in Italian about any kind of stuff, if you're into bricolage or handcrafts, and you start watching that in Italian instead of English, that's going to be helpful, because you know already what they're going to do. And if you watch it in Italian, you will learn a bunch of verbs that can help you. This is not enough. No, it's all stuff that you should do out of interest, besides grammar, besides a bunch of other things, because it's you cannot just learn by watching videos, but that's something that can really give you, a push. It can ti dà un po' una spinta. It's something to give a push is like dare una spinta. Dà una spinta al tuo italiano or whatever language you are learning. And I believe this is a great way to improve your Italian faster. I'm not a fan of Italian music. Io non sono una fan della musica italiana, but of course, in Italian, there are plenty of artists that sing like in pop, especially in pop, slowly, because we have a lot of slow, melodies and this kind of music, which I'm not a fan of, because I've learned English by listening to UK music, and this is the proof that you can learn through music too. So I would definitely recommend to listen to Italian music. We have Sanremo, we have Eurovision, so all of these shows where abbiamo questi show tipo Sanremo, Eurovision, dove tu praticamente hai un sacco di, come dire, di artisti. You have a bunch of artists, you can pick the ones that you like more, and you can look up, the lyrics, and even reading for lyrics is something that can help, and that trains your ear. that's gonna train your ear a lot, because it's also important to train your ear when it comes to learning Italian, because in italiano io posso parlare molto lentamente da prof, ok? Quindi parlo così, ma se tu ascolti, but if you listen to like some artists from Naples, you're not going to understand like a word. And that's a problem, because it's a problem for me too, because my ear is not trained on accent from Naples. Il mio accento è completamente diverso. Io vengo dal nord Italia, quindi non sono abituata a sentire il napoletano. I'm not used to learn to you know to hear accents from Naples, from Rome. So I also need to train my own ear. As an Italian, we have so many dialects that it's not easy to understand like Sicilian, Neapolitan accents. They are so hard. I really struggle. I'm not joking, non sto scherzando. Accento di Napoli, accento di siciliano, io non capisco niente. Cioè, io capisco veramente l'italiano standard, l'italiano della mia regione, fine. I don't think it's the same for other. I mean, like in Germany, you have like Bavarian accent. That's pretty hard to understand, to remember how they pronounce. You can still go through that, but in Italian it's impossible. In italiano è impossibile, I bet, really. In italiano io non capisco il siciliano, il napoletano, Basilicata, Puglia. I really struggle to understand those accents. And I believe, I like it. I like to learn I like to hear people when I'm on holiday in southern Italy, but it's so hard. I'm not joking. Like it's really another level of difficulty. I think like Spanish is not that different, or French. They have accents, they have a bit of different, but the Italian dialects, they're really on another level. Not to mention the fact that we even have like own languages. Like Venetian is considered a language, and Sardinian. So the Venice language and the Sardinian language are considered languages, not even dialects or accents. They're considered languages, which is crazy. Like if you think about that, because Italy is like a puzzle of different countries. L'Italia è un puzzle, no? Italy is a puzzle of different countries, and that doesn't make it easy for us, to understand each other, And when did we start speaking standard Italian? That just happened after World War II or during World War II, because during World War II, what happened was that basically a lot of soldiers from everywhere in Italy. So we had soldiers from northern Italy, from southern Italy, and they were sent here and there in Africa, in the various parts of the war, and they had to communicate. So that's how we built, the standard Italian. And during World War II, we developed a lot our television and radio systems in Italy. So we started to develop RAI. Yes, RAI started, to become bigger and bigger during the World War II. So they were making like announcements, and these announcements were supposed to be understood from Italy, from every Italian. So they started to, build the standardized Italian accent. But people like I try to speak very slowly, in a very light manner. I try to not put too much emphasis on words that are not supposed to be emphasized. So I try to emphasize only the right words, because I'm a teacher, so that's why I speak like this. But if you just go in the streets, it's gonna be like it's gonna be very mixed up and not easy for the Italian ears, for the non-Italian here. So you really need to maybe start even listening to songs in various dialects. So there is a lot of folk music from Sicily, from Sardinia, from many parts of Italy. But if you just need Italian to barely communicate when you're here on holiday, everyone is going to try to understand you. So you have also to think about that. We try to understand our tourists. We have a lot of German tourists in my area, and people actually learn German to accommodate our tourists. But if a German tourist come up to me and say, vorrei andare and they speak with this accent, it's gonna be fine. Okay, everyone will understand them because it's not just a matter of pronunciation. I think I have a pretty strong Italian accent in English, but I'm still fluent. I could try to be more like British English, but it's too much of an effort to speak like now with a proper accent. My Italian is pretty stronger. When I was living in the UK, I think I managed to cancel that out a bit. When I was quando vivevo in Inghilterra, so when I was in the UK, I tried to cancel out this Italianness in my accent, but then somehow it reappeared, which is something that I don't like it, but apparently people do like that. It's mad because I don't like to sound too much Italian when I speak in English, but I still do, unfortunately. Anyways, the point is that if you need, se tu hai bisogno della lingua, if you need language just to communicate, don't care about the accent. Just try. With Vietnamese, for me, is so fucking hard because in Vietnamese you have tones like in Chinese. Like ma. It's so hard for me. It's actually, I struggle so much to hear the difference. But I say ma. If they understand, they're gonna try harder to understand me because I know how hard it is, especially for beginners level, to anticipate these little differences in tones, because Vietnamese is a tonal language like Chinese, and it really puts you down because you think, oh my God, it's so hard, but you just have to try and people will understand you. I try to speak on Hello Talk. If any one of you guys know, Hello Talk is this app that allows you to meet people from all over the world. And you have this app, it's completely free, so you can just sign up, and these people are going to match you like on Tinder, but with languages. So if you're a native of Vietnamese and you want to learn Italian and vice versa, I'm Italian, I want to learn Vietnamese, I'm going to match with this person. And I was like, okay, can I send you an audio message? I want to hear your feedback about my tones. And he was like, yeah, go ahead. I thought I was doing so bad. And he said, no, well, I can understand everything. So, you just have to try. And especially in Italian, we have all of these sounds. I made a video about this, like g, ch. If you say gnocchi wrong, like if you say gnocchi, yes, someone can maybe make fun of you because we are so used to hear that. But it's fine, it's completely normal if you're a foreigner, and we have this bloody rule with ch. It's completely normal if you're a foreigner, and we have this bloody rule with ch meaning k, or gh meaning g. People are gonna maybe laugh at you, but not in a bad way. They're just gonna say, oh, come on, that's another non-native speaker making this bloody mistake. And that's why I made a video about this. And I was like, it's not easy to not make this mistake, but people are always gonna make that mistake. You have to know maybe 10 words with ch, and then you're not gonna make this mistake anymore. As I said, like, learn sentences like chiavi, like if you learn like chiudi la chiave, chiudi la chiesa con le chiavi, chiudi la chiesa con le chiavi, close the church with the keys. If you learn a sentence like that, you're going to remember how you have to think ch means k, right? Not ch, but k. And that's a way to remember. You have to build these mental models that allow you to, remember how a sound is pronounced in this specific language. So in Italian, we struggle a lot, but that's one of the few, because otherwise our orthography is pretty transparent. That means that whatever we write, we read it in the same way, In English, it's not the same. English is the worst of the words on this term, because in English, like words like Q, like coda, coda Q, you write with Q, U, E, like 5 letters for one sound, and that's very difficult for non-natives to speak, like to say Q in a correct way. It's going to be so hard, but after a while everyone has an accent. Non-native speakers, it's impossible to cancel out your accent, but you will learn how Q is pronounced as Q. But words like chiavi, gnocchi, etc. Ghirlanda, in Italian we have GH, like ghirlanda. After a while, you will learn how these sentences have to be pronounced like this, right? So it's just a matter of trying, repeating, watching videos again. I will try to make more videos about pronunciation too, because I believe it's quite important for many people to sound, as clear as possible. And in Italian, it's not easy to to sound like because we use a lot the word like this and that, but it's not just, we don't do it randomly, we do it with cognition. Ma quando parliamo in italiano, when I speak in Italian, my words, my voice changes even, it changes a bit, because quando parlo in italiano, it's more like altisonante. Altisonante means it's like a word to say, it goes up and down, altisonante in Italian. Italian is considered una lingua, è considerata una lingua un po' altisonante, right? I think it's quite interesting how languages sound in different ways. And for example, if you would study, I had students who studied, ho avuto studenti che prima hanno studiato a Roma. E dicevo, ma tu hai studiato per forza a Roma, because in Rome they speak in a different way. It's completely different. So if you study in Verona and then you study in Rome, you will hear a big difference. Or if you first study in Naples and then you move to Milan, it's gonna be a shock for you how they speak in Milan versus how they speak in Rome. It's so different. So I really believe languages can be so interesting from this point of view, but the best way to tackle is to keep on exercise. So repeat, watch videos, just mimic. You have to mimic, you have to try again, and even record yourself. If you record yourself, se tu ti registri, you can actually have a feedback immediately afterwards, because you can listen to yourself again, ti puoi riascoltare, and you're gonna think, oh, I sound so bad, or actually I'm not that bad. It can vary a lot if you try to. And something that I did, so when I started learning English like 15 years ago, maybe I was recording myself, and nowadays I go back to those audio records and I go like, oh my god, I was really like on A2 level, and now I can hear myself being like fluent. So that's even rewarding for yourself if you do something like that, because you can listen to yourself, maybe 1 year apart, 2 years apart, or 3 years apart, and say, oh my god, I made so much different. It makes such a big difference after 2 or 3 years, or even 2 or 3 months, because if you spend 1 month in Italy, you're going to be more fluent. That's for sure. Se tu stai un mese in Italia and you just speak with Italian people, you're gonna pick up, even the hand gestures. That's pretty. It's because the more you communicate and the more you pick up the behavior too. That's something that it's quite normal. Well, so I think I have to say goodbye. It was fun because I have the last lesson of the day. It starts for me at 10 p.m., so I need to get ready. It's just 1 hour, so I'm glad it's gonna be not too long. And I was happy to be hosting this live direct. You can follow my account. I'm just gonna post more and more. I just started out. I'm so happy to be here and to have a bit of people that are interested in Italian. I'm gonna do that maybe again next week, a live session like this one. It's nice to talk about different aspects of the language, and it's gonna be fun. So please subscribe to my account if you have the chance, if you're into languages. I'm also posting a lot of travel videos because I was in Thailand, so I had a lot of funny content that I'm posting, but that's not like the main goal of my channel. But still, maybe some people are interested or get hooked because of my travel videos. But I suggest you to follow me. And if any one of you want to take classes with me, you can just send me an email, drop me a message, or a DM on here on Instagram is fine. I'm gonna try to reply to everyone and schedule in some classes. So that's going to be funny. Yeah, that's it. So that's pretty much. I teach also other languages. So if you're into German, I can also, and I studied linguistics at master's level. So I'm into also academic tutoring because I did a double degree research master in language acquisition. So I like to make educational content also because of this reason, so I can help you out with academics. If any one of you is writing your thesis, I'm not a supervisor, but I have worked as a research assistant at a university in Germany and in Italy, so I have a bit of experience in that too. So I'm pretty excited about continuing on this path. And that's it. So I say goodbye to you and good night, because I bet some of you are gonna go to sleep not in long time. So bye bye, and that was fun. Tschüss.